back to the topic at hand. Let's take a look at the overall crypto market real quick. I just want to show or share this with you guys. So a lot of you guys pay attention to CMC. A lot of you guys pay attention to the likes of, CoinGecko. We all have our favorites, right? When you go to CMC, you'll see when you scroll further down, especially when it comes to Stellar, I've always pointed this out. Always pay attention to what you have in your portfolio, and especially when it comes to the likes of, like Stellar, right? So right around the 12 cent area, very, worth pointing out. But in recent news, let's share this. So here we go. Stellar. Well, this is actually from Soroban, as we know, built on Stellar. So this reminder really stood out. Why is that? Well, it was posted just a few hours ago. This is a big update. If you're paying attention to Stellar, you definitely want to see what's going on with this. So it says that this is a reminder. It says update all your software in preparation for the January 30 upgrade vote for Protocol 20, referring, of course, to the devs, right? We've been paying attention to, like, was there something big that's going to happen at the end of the year for Stellar? No, but if anything, is, I guess you could say, like a little bit of a delay. But this key thing about this preparation for January 30th upgrade protocol vote, I should say, Protocol 20, smart contracts are coming to Stellar, or be prepared. Again, not like a delay in which this is like, to the middle of this year, but you see some of these things. So details in this thread, of course, this was originally on, December 19th. Gets into the whole thing about this validator vote, install up-to-date versions, all this stuff, right? Talks about some of the mainnet phase rollouts. Some of you guys already saw this. Obviously, there was a break and so on. And maybe you're already caught up to date with it. Maybe you're not. But the whole point is the whole thing with Soroban's phase mainnet rollout and how these devs had some of these, deadlines. I think last time I was with you guys when we talked about the whole thing with Soroban, there was like a contest, if you will, if I'm not mistaken, and that really stood out as well, right? So there's more to it than just this. I want to share this as well. This is in regards to this post that was reposted from Soroban, and it states oracles with Soroban smart contracts, a practical and flexible on-chain framework. As we know, oracles basically serve as bridges between blockchains and, of course, external data sources. For most of us, we know how this works. If you don't, it's okay. But, oracles with Soroban smart contract, a practical and flexible on-chain framework. Now, this was, of course, a little bit before Christmas, not that long ago, about roughly a week or two ago, right? Very, very significant for multiple reasons. And getting more into this, here's the actual article straight from dev.to. It talks about some of this stuff. And I'm not going to get into all of it because, let's face it, we're not devs. But where you want to pay attention is where it talks about in this article about a flexible, extensible Oracle system leveraging this particular pub/sub pattern for asynchronous communication between what? Multiple on-chain Oracle subscribers and brokers, implementing a system for, of course, Soroban, power smart contracts on Enlightenment, and this other thing, feeding royalty contracts with market prices. Now, I don't need to be the biggest nerd to understand the significance of where this can go, and I think I probably caught some of your attention in regards to this. They had this thing about applying macros to your contract. Again, this is all nerd talk, but this right here, leveraging the publisher subscriber pattern, enable multiplicity between Oracle subscribers, brokers, publishers. Says not only enhances deployment flexibility, also allows for gradual increase in system resilience, robustness, mitigating the risk associated with reliance on a single point. All sounds great, right? But on top of that, like we always mention, only a single line of code. Well, just like with Quant, which you're going to see coverage later on into this show tonight, Quant always boasts the whole idea of 3 lines of code. This is Soroban, 1 single line of code. So the common factor here is between both projects, whether it's Quant or Stellar, is attracting devs and making something unique. Now, if anything, my key takeaway in regards to my research was this. I said to myself, I wanted to find out more of the nitty gritty. And what I mean by that is the breakdown of why this is so darn significant, especially for you as a stellar holder. So, for one, like this whole thing of like oracles with Soroban smart contracts, like it says, a flexible, practical, um, on-chain framework. But the bottom line is, why is that so significant? I mean, if I was somebody from the audience tonight, I'd be totally asking that. It's a legitimate question. So, in my breakdown in regards to my own research and notes, I came to the conclusion of why this is so significant. So, for one, we know that this whole thing bridges the gap between real world and smart contracts. At the end of the day, even when we get to the quant coverage, it's kind of like the same concept, but more from a perspective of what countries are getting involved with CBDCs, as we know, like LACchain, Latin America. We've seen some things. Was it the other night with BSV for South Korea? So, real world assets, smart contracts. Say what you want. There's no JASMY coverage tonight. We did talk about real world assets and how significant that is going to be, for instance, for the likes of JASMY. But you got to keep in mind, when you understand oracles and how they serve as bridges, or essential bridges, I should say, that will enable smart contracts to basically access external data and information that they cannot just retrieve basically on their own. I mean, it's a tool. And if anything, this is utility. You're always talking about, or we're talking about, which particular cryptocurrencies have utility. Does it just have one utility layer, or does it have multiple utility layers? You got to also keep in mind, this whole concept with these oracles does in fact expand the potential use case of these smart contracts. So enter in the whole concept of Soroban. It's going to allow them to interact with real world events, financial markets, and other data sources. And when I got even more into this, I know it sounds like I'm being a broken record at this point. I got more into it and I said to myself, well, the bottom line is, for Soroban and devs that came from like Ethereum or other particular, blockchains and so on, was, are you going to create a flexible way for devs can just come in and have that ease of access and make a lot of really nice customizations? The answer is definitely yes. How so? Well, framework. And what we mean by that is basically on-chain design that offers developers more control over the Oracle system's configuration and operations. Now, when we get more into this outline, I'm going to give you some info in regards to how does this really compete with the likes of, Chainlink, right? Chainlink is considered like, the king of oracles, basically. And, rightfully so. I'm not going to say that this is going to trump it, but if you could still create a little bit more competition instead of just saying, hey, look at Soroban. Soroban's this premier smart contract for Stellar. Stellar is going to be a real threat to Ethereum, because Ethereum is so slow. It's the McDonald's of smart contracts, right? But then enter into this whole thing of oracles, and then that creates even more supply and demand. And I promise we'll get into that as well. So this also tailors, if you will, solutions that meet specific application requirements. It's going to foster into, of course, the whole idea of innovation, experimentation. But, when we talked about Ethereum, it's slow. One thing that always stands out for ETH is security. So what about the whole thing of Soroban and security? Well, keep in mind, this specific framework benefits from the underlying security and immutability of the Soroban network. You got to keep in mind, Soroban is built on top, but it's its own exclusive thing in regards to Stellar, right? Also keep in mind that this is going to reduce reliance on external systems and their potential vulnerabilities associated with, of course, centralized Oracle providers. So when we talk about which ones stand out and which ones don't, well, Soroban is at the head of the pack already, and it's not even here yet. So there's all, sorts of things I found out in regards to streamlined development. I didn't want to get into all that. But another thing I want to get into was back to the topic of Oracle's robust Oracle systems? Is it going to be optimized for this? And the answer, of course, is yes on that. Listen to this for a second in regards to Soroban's network in itself. They have framework that's designed to facilitate and create a robust Oracle systems that can withstand, for instance, potential failures and attacks. So for some people are like, man, Soroban has like features that remind me of, for whatever reason, I've seen people post this on Reddit, and I think this is absurd. You know, basically kind of like, Solana going down. Like, you don't want the network going down. Not going to be that at all. It will be able to withstand potential failures, attacks, even promotes redundancy. Like we mentioned before, can you scale with what you have? And the answer is yes. And of course, this is going to align everything with Stellar's native smart contract platform. Some people have asked, I don't understand how all this comes into the bigger picture, especially when it comes to Stellar and XLM and so on. Again, part of the ecosystem, they go hand in hand, they complement each other on so many different things, especially when it comes to the NFT marketplaces, applications that leverage, for instance, real world data, real world assets. But in conclusion, even though this is kind of like a brief segment tonight, I said to myself also, well, all this stuff sounds cool when it comes to Soroban and so on. But the bottom line is, since Oracle's with Soroban smart contracts are so important, how does Stellar compete with Oracle's like what? Chainlink? Because everybody's going to be asking that. And you got to keep in mind, Soroban itself is a separate smart contract platform, like I mentioned, built on top of Stellar. And it's specifically used for, like, for instance, financial applications, but much more than just that. We know that oracles basically play a crucial role when it comes to both these ecosystems, but they also allow smart contracts to access the internet with real world data and, of course, those specific events. Now, what I'm going to break down for you guys is the similarities and the differences for you to have a broader idea, especially if you're like a Chainlink holder, or even if you don't hold Chainlink, you're just thinking, well, how is this like a real competitor and is a legitimate comparison? So please keep in mind that even though Stellar has a connection with Soroban, it does approach Oracle's solution in compared to, or I should say, this comparison with Chainlink. Some of the similarities are three key things for you as your takeaway of the night. So keep in mind, both Chainlink and Stellar, or I should say Soroban, provide trusted Oracle networks that connect, in fact, smart contracts to off-chain data and those specific systems. On top of that, number two, both do very well, in fact, leverage decentralized consensus mechanisms to ensure data integrity and, of course, tamper-proofness. Sounds like a weird term, tamper-proofness, but that was a real thing. Number three, and you know how we always talk about quant with APIs, listen to this. Both of these offer various data feeds and APIs for different types of information. For example, exchange rates, whether data and, for instance, event triggers. Now, there's some more differences. Okay, let's get back into the Chainlink side of things. We did talk about Soroban. So with architecture, we do know that when it comes to Chainlink, they do have their own dedicated blockchain network, of course, for Oracle operations. This is why a lot of times people feel as though, well, Chainlink is the king of oracles. And rightfully so, because if anything, they don't have to rely on a contract with another particular blockchain. They have their own thing going on. But keep in mind, while Soroban with Stellar utilizes the existing Stellar network for Oracle nodes and consensus, this all can, in fact, impact transaction fees and, of course, performance. Chainlink, on the other hand, does focus their aim to be a general purpose Oracle solution for any specific blockchain. And this is, of course, where a lot of Chainlink maxis will be like, yeah, that's right. This is why we don't need quant. More to it than just that. We've covered that. While these two are very similar, keep in mind Soroban primarily caters to the financial use cases and the Soroban smart contract platform. Bottom line for you, in layman's terms, it's a 2-for-1. How cool is that? All right, these last two things I want to get into real quick. We talked about customization earlier. Chainlink offers high flexibility and customization options, of course, for Oracle networks, while the Stellar Soroban network / ecosystem may present a more standardized, streamlined approach. That sounds attractive. Combine that with the likes of a premier smart contract platform. Again, back to the whole notion of you're getting a 2-for-1. All right. Some people pointed out, yeah, sounds good, Max, but token economics, totally different tokenomics. Well, yeah, true. Very, very true. You have to keep in mind that Chainlink does, in fact, use the Link token for network fees and node incentives. Yes, look that up for yourself. It's a real thing. While on the other hand, Soroban with Stellar, okay, relies, of course, on Stellar Lumens XLM for fees for a broader ecosystem and those functions that are involved with that. Now, last but not least, we got to talk about some of the competitive advantages between the two. Because at the end of the day, why not? I mean, if you hold both or you're thinking about getting to one or the other, everybody wants to know about competition. Legitimate question. You have to keep in mind that there is fast and cheap transactions. Leveraging the efficient Stellar network, as we know, can lead to faster and cheaper Oracle requests compared to, of course, the likes of Chainlink. But there is focus on financial data. For instance, the pre-built financial data leads, or I should say feeds and integrates on Soroban may seem to be more efficient and targeted for certain financial applications. So when we talk about cross-border payments and all these other things, what about being able to take a smart contract on top of that, where we have areas in the world where you don't see maybe that going on? So again, is it another case of a 2-for-1? I think it is. All right, institutions real quick in regards to the competitive advantage, because we're always talking about the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, and so on. Listen to this. Stellar boasts a network of financial institutions and established partners. We know that. Lots of them. A grocery list, just like, for instance, Ripple, a big grocery list. And this is going to potentially create more secure and trusted environments for financial applications. Again, having a smart contract platform, a premier one, opens up the door for dApps. Do you have Chainlink opening up that door? Well, we'll have to wait and see. There's, of course, challenges for both of these, right? I don't want to get into all of that. But one thing I do want to point out is in regards to between the two, developing an ecosystem. Because at the end of the day, I think when it comes to Soroban, you do see how this opens up the door towards just creating an amazing ecosystem. So Soroban itself, as we know, is a platform, and its Oracle framework are still under development. True. It's not even out yet on the mainnet yet. But it does require further growth and adoption to fully, of course, compete with the likes of an established big name like Chainlink. At the end of the day, which one will come out ahead? You know? And my thing is this, it ain't about that. For me, why not just hold both? Both do stand out, but you do like the idea that with Stellar, you now have that 2-for-1 smart contract platform, and also the whole thing of competing with the likes of Chainlink. You know, in the past, we never pointed out some of this stuff. So thought I would share it with you guys. Glad to do so.